Edited by Yu. How do we verify if our consciousness is flawed? How do we determine if our choices and lifestyles are correct? How do we confirm if our outlooks on the world, life, and values are aligned with the Tao? There is only one method of verification. Let facts show us the answers. Jesus Christ gave us a simple and understandable truth when he said, "A good tree bears good fruit, and a bad tree bears bad fruit." This implies that a good consciousness, correct choices, suitable ways of living, and life perspectives and values in line with the Tao will undoubtedly lead to a life of joy, happiness, freedom, and bliss. Conversely, negative consciousness, incorrect choices, unsuitable ways of living, and perspectives and values that deviate from the Tao will result in a life filled with suffering, anxiety, fear, and disasters. Through extensive observation and analysis, I've discovered that the world is faultless. All faults lie within us. If our lives are perpetually plagued by vexations, suffering, anxiety, fear, troubles, illness, and poverty, we should not blame the greatest creator for injustice, society for its shortcomings, others for their malevolence, or our friends and family for their lack of empathy. Instead, we must understand that all of these stems from our erroneous consciousness and actions, improper ways of living, and distorted outlooks on the world, life, and values. In the face of painful realities, those who fail to reflect and introspect, but instead seek reasons and excuses to defend their errors, can anticipate an even worse future. This applies to individuals, as well as nations and countries. The world is faultless. All faults lie within us. If a nation is backward or a country is impoverished, the problems undoubtedly originate from within, not from other nations or countries. When the path forward is obstructed by others, the solution is to apologize to them, humbly accept criticism, condemnation, and threatening advice from those who have obstructed your way. It's not about obstinately asserting oneself, trading verbal blows, or raising a threatening fist, as these approaches will only worsen the situation. Each of us might find 1,000 reasons to justify our errors, but the laws of nature have 10,000 ways to punish human mistakes. Defending our errors might bring temporary self-numbing, but once the anesthesia wears off, the ensuing pain will be even more unbearable. When someone lives each day in health, joy, happiness, freedom, and contentment, it means their consciousness is sound, choices and lifestyles are correct, life perspectives and values are suitable. There's no need to doubt oneself, delve into complex knowledge, theology, Buddhism, or metaphysics. No need. Continue the journey of life in your current state, and a bright future is guaranteed. However, for someone suffering the torment of illness, entangled in vexations, suffering, anxiety, depression, fear, and poverty, deep repentance is necessary. Your own misfortunes are caused by your own consciousness and actions. Your unhappiness has nothing to do with the greatest creator, the world, society, or others. When we are lost, instead of seeking theories everywhere, those seemingly divine theories can't guide us out of confusion. Rather, they intensify it. Even classic doctrines can't compare to observing facts, because facts are the most honest and genuine testimony. Facts best verify and reveal whether we are on the right path. What do we live for? Xuefeng, July 1st, 2023. Edited by Yu. Imagine there's a market 10 kilometers away from your home. You have a basket of eggs, and you can exchange them for a small lamb at the market. There are 3 ways to get to the market: walking, riding a bicycle, or driving a small car. Which option would you choose? Walking to and from the market takes a whole day. Riding a bicycle takes 3 hours, and driving a car takes only 30 minutes. Are you willing to spend a whole day on the journey, or just 30 minutes? This involves our perspectives on the purpose of our life. Those who spend a day traveling to the market have a leisurely lifestyle. They only raise 10 chickens, which in 10 days lay enough eggs to exchange for a small lamb. Those who ride bicycles need to raise 20 chickens, 10 chickens worth of eggs for a bicycle and another 10 chickens worth for a lamb. Those who drive cars need to raise 100 chickens, 90 chickens worth of eggs for a car and its maintenance, and 10 chickens worth for a lamb. Let's start by calculating who has more leisure and who is busier. It takes a whole day for someone to walk to and from the market, while those who drive spend only 30 minutes. Without a doubt, Those who drive to the market save a significant amount of time. However, those who walk to the market only spend an hour each day feeding chickens, whereas those who drive spend 10 hours a day on this task, as they have 10 times the number of chickens as the ones who walk to the market. Now, let's see what these three kinds of people do each day. Those who walk spend most of their time sipping tea, chatting, enjoying flowers, and swimming in the river, sometimes lying on a haystack watching the changing sky and the birds flying by. Those who ride bicycles spend 2 hours feeding chickens and have some time left for tea, chats, flowers, swimming, and gazing at the sky. Those who drive cars spend 10 hours feeding chickens and have very little time for leisure activities. So, which mode of transport would you choose to go to the market? Walking, riding a bicycle, or driving a car? This leads us to the question of why we exist. If it's purely to enjoy life, choose to walk to the market. If living is about appearing better off than your neighbors, then ride a bicycle to the market. If living is about being envied by people around you, then drive a car to the market. The purpose of a watch is to tell the time accurately. So, would you choose a $3 electronic watch or a $30,000 Rolex? The purpose of a bag is to carry things. When it comes to accommodating the same number of items, would you choose the 3 yuan cloth bag? Or would you choose the 3,000 yuan Hermes bag? The purpose of a bowl is to hold food. Would you choose a $3 porcelain bowl or a $30,000 gold bowl? The simpler, more modest, and less expensive something is, the more it tends towards the primitive, bringing a leisurely and comfortable feeling. On the other hand, the more complex, lavish, and costly something is, the more it tends towards modernity, making life busier and more stressful. Whatever possessions we have will always occupy our time, energy, and mind. The more we have, the busier and more troubled we become. When one possesses everything, the true meaning of life is lost. When one has nothing, the true meaning of life is found. Every day, when we do things, we should ask ourselves whether we're doing them willingly and joyfully or under compulsion. With the advent of convenient and efficient devices like smartphones, computers, cars, and airplanes, are we more relaxed or busier? Are we enjoying life more or becoming more anxious for life? The more we use smartphones, the more we might notice ourselves becoming controlled by them. As we accumulate knowledge and wisdom, gather more information daily, and broaden our horizons, do we sometimes feel overwhelmed? Do we find ourselves feeling smaller, lost, and struggling to find the value and meaning of our existence? Have you noticed that we're becoming increasingly reliant on smartphones? With the development of technology, especially the birth and advancement of artificial intelligence, there might come a day when people suddenly ask, "Where are the people? Where am I?" Are we conversing with ourselves or machines? In the end, it's out of our control, just like we can't part with our smartphones. It's not that we don't want to discard them. It's just that without them, we feel directionless, and even the ability to survive becomes questionable. Isn't this a colossal crisis? How can we navigate this human crisis? The answer is, only by following the way of nature. How do we follow the way of nature? The answer is, some people on this earth have already seen the crisis facing humanity and have already embarked on the path of the way of nature. Follow in their footsteps. 最美人生在这里. The most beautiful life is here. Xuefeng. October 5th, 2023. Edited by Qin Yu. Where is the most beautiful life? Actions speak louder than words. Let the facts speak for themselves. Search for the voices of elderly people living in the second home on YouTube, and you will find the answer. The most beautiful life is in the second home. These elderly individuals have a lower level of education, have lived in rural areas for most of their lives, and are in their 70s or even 80s. However, after living in the second home for over 4 years, what realizations and experiences do they have? Their shared sentiment is, life in the second home is excellent. Even if they were provided with houses in their hometowns, along with caregivers, and a monthly living allowance of 10,000 yuan, they firmly state they will not return, with some even saying, "We'd rather die than go back." For these elderly individuals, living in the second home is like living in paradise. So, how does life in the second home affect middle-aged people, young people, teenagers, and children? Let the facts speak once again. Please search online, especially on YouTube and Facebook, for Chanyuan Celestial's voices, and this second home? You will find the answer. In summary, from young children to young adults in their 20s, to middle-aged people in their 40s and 50s, to the elderly in their 80s and 90s, not a single person says that life in the second home is anything but wonderful. Everyone enjoys life in the second home. This generation of humanity has existed for nearly 5,000 years, and in human history, there is no better way of life than life in the second home. Even in the future, no superior way of life will emerge. Even if gods, Buddhas, immortals, and sages were to collaborate in creating a more advanced way of life on Earth, it would never surpass the second home. People pursue happiness, freedom, and security. Have you found happiness, freedom, and security? I can say with certainty that apart from the production and lifestyle model of the second home, even if you have great power, even if you have vast riches, even if you are highly educated and knowledgeable, even if you are the returning Jesus, Ziwei Saint, Eastern Sage, or the next life of Maitreya, you will find it extremely difficult to create a life that makes everyone feel happy, joyful, free, and blessed. You won't be able to achieve true happiness, freedom, and security unless you have the ability to take people to heaven. So, I suggest to all those who want to seek happiness for all of humanity, from high-ranking United Nations officials to all religious leaders, from presidents of various countries to various masters, stop struggling and causing chaos. You won't find it or be able to do it. You should humbly learn and spread Chanyuan values and earnestly practice the production and lifestyle model of the second home unless you have personal ambitions and motives. As for the wealthy and the masses, instead of thinking about how to protect your wealth and develop yourselves, it would be more practical and appropriate to become Chanyuan Celestials and live in the second home. Rushing and toiling day in and day out, in the end, you will still live in troubles, pains, anxieties, and fears. You will never achieve a life of happiness, joy, freedom, and blessedness. When facing the facts, respect the facts and use them as a mirror. 路线方向错越努力越糟糕. Wrong route direction. The harder you strive, the worse it gets. Xuefeng. August 29, 2023. Translation edited by Yu. This morning, I watched a short video where a 39-year-old woman relayed advice to women aged 24 to 30. She regretted missing the optimal time for marriage and now, at 39, finding an ideal partner seems increasingly difficult. She cautioned young women to find a partner and marry within that age range to avoid a lifetime of regret and remorse. This 39-year-old woman made a directional error. When she advised young women to find partners and get married early, she overlooked a harsh reality. Even if one marries on time, what follows marriage? Thousands of years of tragedies, both past and present, from all around the world, have already told us that following the path of marriage and starting a family will inevitably lead to a tragic life. Entering into marriage early, starting a family, having children, acquiring houses and cars, raising kids, managing various relationships, worrying about your children's future marriages, and then taking care of grandchildren. All the while, conflicts between spouses may arise from emotions, differing viewpoints, and the handling of relationships with relatives and friends. Reflecting on these matters can be overwhelming, not to mention advising others to step into the prison of marriage and family, which is simply foolish. Marriage and family have caused life tragedies too numerous to count. Consider the pressures faced by those burdened with mortgage and car payments in recent years, the various levels of officials brought down due to corruption, the psychological stresses and spiritual depressions experienced by children unable to find jobs, the high divorce rates arising from differing values between spouses, and the desperate emotional scars that result. Advising other young women to marry and start a family early, isn't this a directional error? Heavenly life has already been born on this earth. Not thinking of moving towards heaven but wanting to follow in the footsteps of predecessors, is not this a directional mistake? When the route and direction are wrong, the more effort you put in, the worse it becomes. Are those who are currently unable to repay their mortgages because they strive to buy a house, making a wrong choice? If they hadn't worked hard then, they wouldn't have bought a house, and without a house, they wouldn't have the current pressure of repayment. Is it the harder you try, the worse it gets? Many individuals engaged in industry find themselves not only bankrupt but also burdened with debt. Could it be that their relentless efforts have not brought them happiness, but instead led them into a quagmire? Those who cunningly maneuvered their way into government positions, driven by a zealous pursuit of corruption, now face exposure and the loss of everything. Reflecting on their past endeavors, they might question whether their strenuous efforts contributed to their descent into the quagmire. Had they not exerted themselves so intensely back then, could they now be enjoying a peaceful and stable life? From a country and nation to a small shop or individual, if the direction and route of your efforts are misguided, the more you strive, the worse it becomes. Where are you directing your efforts at this very moment? 不知第二家园，怎知天堂之路? Without knowledge of the second home, how can one know the path to heaven? Xuefeng, September 2nd, 2023. Translation edited by Yu. Many people aspire to a heavenly life, and there are many who practice and seek enlightenment to go there. But if you don't know the second home, how can you know the way to heaven? To reach heaven, there are several key criteria. To have no worldly entanglements. To repay the debts accumulated through past lives. For life's quality to reach selflessness and unselfishness. To know how to have fun. How can those who have not experienced life in the second home meet these four hard criteria? It's virtually impossible. Trying to end worldly ties while living in the secular world is like trying to clean your feet while standing in mud. How can your feet ever be completely clean? How can one ever be free from worldly ties? Seeking to repay accumulated debts from past lives while being in this mundane world is akin to borrowing money from one person to repay another. It's like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. How can it ever be fully repaid? In traditional society, aspiring to achieve unselfishness and selflessness is as challenging as trying to lift oneself off the ground by pulling one's own hair. Is it even possible? The notion of being unselfish and selfless contradicts the very essence of survival in that program. Do you know how to have fun? If not, why would you go to heaven? Do you think speeding in a car, riding roller coasters, yachting at high speeds, bungee jumping, or gambling in a casino is having fun? Wrong. If you haven't experienced games and entertainment activities in the second home, you basically don't know what real fun is. Therefore, anyone who hasn't been influenced by life in the second home will find it incredibly challenging to enter heaven, no matter how much they practice and seek enlightenment. Do you believe that understanding the Diamond Sutra, Heart Sutra, Quran, Bible, Tao Te Ching, or other classics can lead you to heaven? Dream on. Does comprehending principles alone lead to heaven? Dream on. Only through actual practice can you reach heaven. Can you achieve that? I often say, have nothing, possess everything, which is a portrayal of heavenly life. But can you truly have nothing? Without the second home, if you have nothing, wouldn't you become a beggar? Even beggars find it challenging to have nothing because they still need a begging bowl and a stick to protect themselves. Without the second home, if you have nothing, you might find yourself in dire straits. Where does having everything come from then? Some might say, I will go to temples and monasteries to practice, to have nothing and possess everything. The issue is, when you're born into the human world, did the Creator only intend for you to go to monasteries and temples to practice? Every creation has a clear purpose. When you make a kettle, is it not meant for boiling water rather than being kept in a storage room for mice to nest in? Did the Creator make humans for spiritual practice? I see many people discussing the principles and ethics of being human, talking about how to enhance their cognition, broaden perspectives, and elevate their realms. They preach benevolence, righteousness, rituals, wisdom, and credibility. Talk about being gentle, kind, humble, frugal, and courteous. They also talk about gong, magic, techniques, and how to be a good person, discussing transcending from the three-dimensional world to the fourth or even fifth-dimensional world. While these discussions are good and valuable, what I want to tell everyone is that these discussions alone cannot lead one to heaven. In conclusion, without understanding the production and lifestyle of the second home, without experiencing and practicing in the second home firsthand, no one can go to heaven. 解析圣智不足谋一生之高维智慧. Deciphering the high-dimensional wisdom of Shengji celestials, insufficient for planning a lifetime. Xuefeng, January 7th, 2024. Translation edited by Yu. In his article, Upgrade Thinking, A Clear Path Awaiting, Shengji Celestial made a thought-provoking statement. Not planning for matters after death is insufficient for planning a lifetime. Not planning for matters in a lifetime is insufficient for planning a single matter. Let's delve into and analyze this statement. If one doesn't think about what happens after death or overlooks it, then planning and striving throughout one's life may be entirely futile and contrary to life's meaning and value. Therefore, those who don't consider their fate and outcomes after death can't plan and organize their lives because those plans and arrangements are fleeting. Even if someone is wise, farsighted, and dedicated, the results will still be in vain because ultimately, they'll have to reincarnate. Similarly, if someone doesn't consider major life events or what they're ultimately living for, but instead struggles and strives on specific matters, their talents, wisdom, and efforts will be wasted, losing the essence of their entire life. Further analysis reveals, what's the purpose of life? It's to live a happy, joyful, free, and fulfilling life. If this purpose isn't considered and life doesn't revolve around it, no matter how clever or hardworking someone is, life will be full of troubles, anxieties, pains, and sorrows. Even if someone becomes a high-ranking official, wealthy, or world-famous, life may still feel like a mess. For instance, after getting married and starting a family, no matter how you manage your family, no matter how many children you have, no matter how successful your children are, no matter how many marriage management plans, how to successfully manage family life, and spouse relationships lectures you have listened to, in the end, you will find that your life cannot be happy, joyful, free, and fulfilling life. This exemplifies not planning for a lifetime, not enough to plan for a single matter, not considering the entire life, but struggling and planning on specific matters will result in winning sesame seeds and smashing watermelons. Similarly, if someone doesn't consider matters after death, does not know where one comes from and where one is going, then the life one plans, thinks, and struggles for will be a failed one. This is not planning for matters after death, not enough to plan for a lifetime. Those who fail to plan for eternity are insufficient to plan for a moment. Those who don't plan for the whole aren't enough to plan for a domain. Countless failed lives illustrate the importance of planning for the future and the whole. The longer and more comprehensive the plan, the better. Those who consider things 1,000 years later must have clearer minds than those who consider things 100 years later. Similarly, those who consider things 100 years later must be more far-sighted than those who consider things 10 years later. Those who consider things 10 years later must be smarter than those who consider things a year later. Those who consider things a year later must be more successful than those who only consider things at hand. From this, we can gain an insight. If we ourselves find it difficult to plan for eternity, plan for the whole, plan for after death, plan for life, then we should follow those who can, and we surely won't go wrong. Conversely, if we listen to those who only focus on the present and follow those who are petty about the present, then life will inevitably become a tragedy or even a disaster. 人生旅途上最悲催的事是不了解自己。The most pitiful thing in life's journey is the lack of understanding of oneself. Xuefeng, February 19, 2024. Translation edited by Yu. The most pitiful thing in life's journey is not that others don't understand you, but that you don't understand yourself, that you don't know yourself. If a person relies on the sympathy, pity, and comforting care of others to survive, then this person has little value left. They will be like a weak infant, unable to bear any responsibility or risk. Many people dream of getting rich overnight, becoming famous in one fell swoop, or becoming president. Those who harbor such thoughts are undoubtedly mentally ill. Even if they manage to achieve their wishes by chance, it would be a joke played by the devil, because what follows is either imprisonment, infamy, or being torn apart. Success and miracles are the result of hard work, not rewards for luck. To be born human, every lazy day, every day of indifference and idleness, is a trampling on life and a desecration and harm to life. Survival is a battle, a fight. If you think that life is peaceful and you can safely enjoy its beauty without your own efforts and dedication, then behind your beautiful life, someone must have sweated, shed tears, and shed blood to create it. They must have suffered torment and devastation for your happiness. Creating wealth for oneself through one's own diligence and hard work is the most just and moral way of life. Any method of obtaining wealth without labor, sweat, and effort is sinful and will be sent to the animal realm to repay debts. Those who commit heinous crimes will be sent to hell to suffer excruciating pain and torment. When you complain about others and society, when you hate others and society, remember, all misfortune comes from your own ignorance, from your ignorance of yourself and your stupidity. If you don't even know who you are, what you can and cannot do, how much water you, as a vessel, can hold, then the object of your complaints and anger is yourself. Only when one knows why one lives can one endure any kind of life. The more one wants to live a rich life, the more grievances and even injustices one must swallow. A person who cannot endure any grievances will ultimately fall into the vulgar sewer. Anyone who wants to live a wonderful and satisfying life must endure the tempering and even beating of life. They must be prepared to sweat, shed tears, and shed blood. They need to grit their teeth and persevere towards their ideal goals against the wind and sand. Doing whatever you want, choosing any job you prefer, following your heart's desires, this is a fantasy. Not only is it impossible on earth, but it is also impossible in heaven. Wherever you are, you must be restrained. If there were no restraints, the earth would have been destroyed long ago, and the universe would have exploded into pieces. Always walk the right path. Walking the right path is challenging, but it is the only way to ascend to the pinnacle of life and life. Don't be swayed by the actions of others. Even if 99 out of 100 people choose the wrong path, you must persist in walking the right path. Once you stray onto the wrong path, the gains might seem easy, but the price paid can be enormous, even irreparable. 痛苦和磨难不会使人的生命升华. Suffering and hardship do not elevate one's life. Xuefeng, March 3, 2024. Currently, there is a prevalent notion on the internet that anyone who brings pain to oneself is here to fulfill oneself, and anyone who comes into one's life is here to fulfill oneself. Is this notion correct? In the Kaijin Tan, there is a warning. When heaven wants to harm someone, it first makes them proud with minor blessings. When heaven wants to bless someone, it first warns them with minor calamities. The Tao Te Ching says, misfortune, that upon which happiness depends. Happiness, that underneath which misfortune lurks. From the perspective of Tai Chi thinking, fortune and misfortune are intertwined, pain and happiness coexist, and hardship and enjoyment go hand in hand. From the perspective of causality, enduring pain and hardship is the eradication of karma. From this, we understand that experiencing pain and hardship on life's journey has its positive side. As long as one recognizes this, one will not be defeated by pain and hardship because the overall energy of the universe balances out. Behind pain and hardship lies happiness and enjoyment. However, the notion that anyone who brings pain to oneself is here to fulfill oneself, and anyone who comes into one's life is here to fulfill oneself, is erroneous. This is because the opposite implication of this notion is anyone who brings happiness to oneself is here to harm oneself, and anyone who comes into one's life is here to deceive oneself. Ask yourself, is someone who brings you joy, happiness, freedom, and blessedness harming you? Is someone who leads you into heaven harming you? Please ask yourself, if a villain stabs your parents or children to death with a knife, causing you pain, can you say that the person causing you pain is here to fulfill you? If rulers oppress you, exploit you, suppress you, and make you suffer, can you say that they are here to fulfill you?